Batman.
And welcome back to the horror, metal, and comics channel. I'm Hellhound, and this is going to be my Batman collection Part 5, live-action movies. In Part 1, we looked at a lot of my Batman comics, not all of them, but a lot of them. Then in Part 2, we looked at books, graphic novels, one-shots, omnibus, trade paperback, collected editions, just anything that you can read that's not an individual comic issue. Then Part 3, we looked at cartoon shows that I had on DVD. And Part 4, we looked at animated movies. And that ended up being my longest video from this little limited series. It was like over 50 minutes long, so I tried to trim it down. I've been using the YouTube Studio Editor for years. I never had a problem. But so I trimmed it down to 44 minutes, but the system malfunctioned and glitched, and now the edits are in the wrong place. So, and it cut off the ending, and some of the, I'll be talking about one movie, it'll cut to me talking about another one. So if you watched it and saw this poorly edited, jumbled together, badly segmented, incoherent mess and got confused, I apologize. But I edited it so many times, 3 times total, and it won't let me revert to the original anymore, so I would have to just re-upload it and start again. But I already spent enough time on that Part 4 video. I think I'm just done with it. I'm just gonna leave it as it is. But I do apologize. But what can you do? So anyway, yeah, live-action movies. Before we get started talking about Batman in film, I got a few other Batman-related items recently. I got Batman issue 196. And 215. Yeah, I gotta love the Silver Age DC comics. So yeah, how much money have I spent on comics and graphic novels in the last 2 months? All of it. And also got Batman issue 0 from 1993. Kind of tried to start over, I guess. Pretty cool cover, pretty cool artwork. And Under the Red Hood. I talked about this in my Part 2, my Batman Part 2 collection video. And I talked about the animated movie adaptation in my Part 4 video, the one that has all the awful editing mistakes. I don't know what happened there, but anyway. But yeah, pretty good. I'm glad to have this in my collection now. And so yeah, let's go ahead and get started. With that out of the way, alright, so yeah, like I mentioned in my other videos, so growing up, I read the comics, watched the Adventures of Batman cartoon, the New Adventures of Batman cartoon from the 70s, watched the Super Friends cartoons, all that. And then, of course, there was like I said, there was the live-action 60s TV show with Adam West. I don't have that complete series on DVD. I've been meaning to get it eventually because it is very nostalgic for me. I watched it growing up, and it holds a special place in my heart. And, I know it's campy and, silly. It's not dark or edgy at all. It's polar opposite from the way I like my Batman, but it's nostalgic, and it was a special place in my heart. I think it's still an important part of Batman's history nonetheless, even though it's not my preferred version. I just love Adam West. He's just a great guy. He never thought he was too good to constantly reappear as Batman in various Batman-related media cameos and whatnot, and he's embraced being the character for so many decades. Rest in peace. So yeah, I don't have the complete series, but I do have Batman the movie from 1966. And yeah, Adam West reprises his role from the series as Bruce Wayne / Batman, Burt Ward's Dick Grayson / Robin, and of course Cesar Romero as the Joker, Burgess Meredith as the Penguin, and Frank Gorshin as the Riddler. Julie Newmar did not reprise her role from the show as Catwoman, and nor did Eartha Kitt. So we have Lee Merriweather playing Catwoman in this, and yeah, it's a very silly movie. But all the villains ham it up nicely. It's not dark at all. Very much the opposite, like I said. But like I said, it's fun, and it's holds a special place in my heart. Sometimes, when I'm in the mood to watch something Batman related, this is probably the last thing I reach for. Well, one of the last things anyway. We'll get to that in a minute. But like I said, it's harmless. It's fun. It's nostalgic, and it just brings back some good memories. Brings back my childhood. So yeah, it's really silly. Joker's supposed to be a homicidal maniac, and in the Batman live-action show with Adam West, probably the worst thing Cesar Romero's Joker did was turning Gotham's water supply into jelly. So yeah, just very, very cartoonish. Bang, pow, boom, yeah, no, Batman. That was one of the first songs I learned how to play on guitar. But yeah, it's a fun, nostalgic show for me. And the movies, for what it is pretty entertaining. I watch it from time to time, and I'm just like, yeah, I just laugh at how silly it is. But what really sealed the deal for me as a Batman fan was the first ever Batman adaptation. Yeah, the first version of Batman outside the comics to be really dark, gritty, violent, serious, and mature. And that's got to be Tim Burton's Batman from 1989. Yeah, you heard me all right. The first adaptation of Batman to take that route. Yeah, and, I know a lot of people don't appreciate this movie quite as much these days, but without it, we might not have had the awesome animated series, we might not even have the Dark Knight trilogy. Who knows? Because, like, a lot of people who didn't read the comics still associated the Adam West version as what Batman was supposed to be. Hell, my stepdad never did move past this version. He didn't think Batman should be dark and gritty. He thought it should be silly and lighthearted. But we have this version to thank for Batman becoming really dark and serious outside of the comics. And Tim Burton took a huge risk by doing that. That was a ballsy move. But I think we have to owe a lot to him when it comes to Batman adaptions, because he really made it what I've been wanting to see during my whole childhood. Tim Burton directed this in 1989. I didn't see this in theaters, but I saw it as soon as it came out on home video. Me and my dad watched it. We loved it, and I watched it at like a sleepover, a birthday party or something at a friend's house. I loved it. So the thing about this is, when it first came out, a lot of people were freaked out that Michael Keaton was going to be playing Bruce Wayne / Batman because, he's not really, really tall, he's not really muscular, he has curly hair, he's not very physically intimidating or imposing. But when this came out, this movie shut everybody up, because performance-wise, he nailed it. He was mysterious, he was dark, he was menacing, he was intimidating. Like, the whole build-up, the fact that Batman's this legend throughout Gotham City, and like the opening scene with the criminals like up in the rooftops and stuff, and he's like, I heard that the Bat got him. I don't like it up here. They're scared to death of him. And then it first shows him, and he has the best Batman voice in live action. Period, in my opinion. I want you to tell your friends about me. I'm Batman. Just perfect, like menacing, but like a more subtle way. He was just creepy and cold and just perfect. Again, he doesn't resemble Bruce Wayne at all, but I kind of like that. He's a little less obvious. Like, a lot of people wouldn't guess that this version of Bruce Wayne is Batman. Like, oh yeah, that, shorter, more scrawny guy with curly hair, that's probably not Batman. But it is, and he's awesome. And then, of course, Commissioner Gordon's played by Pat Hingle. He doesn't have a whole lot to do. Michael Goff is great as Alfred, the wise, kind, elderly butler who's pretty much like a father to Bruce Wayne. He's raised him pretty much since he was a kid after his parents died. And this is the best version of the parents being murdered scene, I think. Because it's just so, like, nightmarish and surreal. Like, later versions kind of spelled it out too much. We'll get to that in a minute. But let's talk about what everybody remembers about this movie. Jack Nicholson as the Joker. Alright, so this is pretty much the only live-action Joker where he uses his Joker toxin and makes people, like, laugh to death and then have a frozen smile on their corpses, which is really scary when done properly. And, he also has the lethal hand buzzers, the razor-sharp playing cards, the flower on his lapel that shoots acid, like, all that stuff. The guns that says bang, like, all that stuff, which is what I want to see in a live-action Joker. And also, of course, it has the Fall into the Vat of Chemicals origin, which was started in Detective Comics 168, and it's expanded upon in The Killing Joke, which we talked about in some of these previous videos. It doesn't have the whole Red Hood thing, and the Joker was already a criminal, a very narcissistic, very vain one named Jack Napier in this version, but it does take a lot of inspiration from The Killing Joke. That was one of Tim Burton's favorite comics storylines. And it's just very respectful of the character. Yeah, there's a few problems with it, but overall, I think it still holds up today. And this is still my favorite live-action Batman movie. And I'll talk more about that as I go on. I'll compare it to some of the later ones. But yeah, I still love it. I love Jack Nicholson's Joker. Hell, he's been practically playing this whole role his whole life. He had to play the Joker at some point. Yeah, he might have been a little too old at this point, but who cares? He was great. He's one of my favorite actors, always has been. And it's just great. Nicholson's great as the Joker. Keaton's great as Batman. I love this movie, and it's not just nostalgia. I like this movie because of nostalgia, and I can see like it's like how silly it is and like how it hasn't aged well. This movie I think still holds up, and it's still friggin' awesome. Love it. It's my favorite Tim Burton movie because I'm not even like the biggest fan of like some of Tim Burton's later stuff. A lot of it I think is just not good at all, but this is freaking amazing. And of course the theme by Danny Elfman is synonymous with Batman to me. As much as I like the theme from the 60s show, the da-da-da-da-da is just awesome. That just like screams Batman to me whenever I hear it. Love it. It's one of the most memorable movie themes ever. So yeah, I can't praise that movie enough. I could go on and on and on. There's a lot of more things I like about it. Yeah, Kim Basinger didn't have a whole lot to do as Vicky Vale. But it's still great. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, yeah, the Joker, Jack Napier is working for, Jack Palance as, Carl Grissom, who's originally, I think, supposed to be either Rupert Thorne or Carmine Falcone. So yeah, he's already a gangster, he's already a thug, but then he falls into the vat of chemicals and becomes an even more maniacal, more deadly, enemy of Batman. And of course, they did kind of make it to where he's the one who killed, Bruce Wayne's parents. It's not the best idea, but in this movie it works. It's fine. It fits. They wanted to have the relationship between them to be even more, have even more of an impact. It works. Love this movie. Alright, then we had, 1992, we had Batman Returns. This is the first superhero movie I ever saw at the theater, and I loved it. When I was a kid, when I was younger, this was actually my favorite, of the two, Burton Batman films. You know, and Michael Keaton returning as Batman, once again, plays him excellently. He nails the part. He's just great. Of course, we have Danny DeVito as the Penguin. They kind of reinvent the character now. He's like a deformed sewer troll who's abandoned by his parents. He's more like a freaky, like, monster, and like he's kind of used that to become mayor. This is a lot more surreal and more like cartoonish. It's more like it feels more like a Tim Burton movie to me than the first one did. Like Tim Burton kind of made it his own, and like his whole surreal, like, crazy, overly dark, overly, like, twisted, atmosphere that he puts in all his movies is way more prevalent here. But I do love Danny DeVito as the Penguin. He does a great job. The performance is great. I don't know if I cared that much for the backstory, but I guess you could say maybe he made him a little more interesting. Michelle Pfeiffer is perfect as Catwoman. She looks great in the costume. Yeah, she was sexy and seductive and sleek and like stealthy and everything you want to see in a live-action Catwoman. This one really gets it right. Catwoman is great. Her origin is kind of stupid, but it's fine. Once she wears the skin-tight leotard, the leather, and like says meow and like all that stuff, it's fine. It just screams Catwoman to me. It's very dark and very adult, and I just love it. But I think my favorite villain in the movie is actually Max Schreck, who gets his name from the actor who played Count Orlok in the 1922 silent film Nosferatu. And of course, he's played by Christopher Walken, which is great news for somebody like me who is such a big fan of that particular actor. Sorry, I had to. I couldn't resist. Yeah, Christopher Walken as Max Schreck is friggin' awesome in this movie. And he steals every scene he's in. I like how he's tied to both Catwoman and the Penguin. Like, in this, Selena Kyle is, like, just a receptionist working for him. She's, like, really kind of awkward and, like, just socially geeky and just, like, has low self-esteem. He, attempts to kill her, or maybe does kill her, and then, like, these cats outside the window lick her fingers and make her have feline powers. I don't know. All of a sudden, she's, like, a martial arts master and does backflips and all kinds of crazy athletic aerobic stuff. And so, yeah, she wants revenge against Max Schreck, and then Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, played by Danny DeVito, kind of uses Max Schreck to his advantage to win over the city of Gotham and become mayor. So they're both tied to him. And then, of course, Bruce Wayne, Batman, wants to shut Max Schreck down because he sees all the horrible illegal stuff he's doing. And Christopher Walken, Max Schreck's son, is played by young Andrew Broniarski, who went on to play Leatherface in the 2003 remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and its prequel. Pretty fun fact. But yeah, I still love this movie. It's not... I don't like it as much as I did when I was younger, and now I do think that this one's far better. But for what it is, it's great. Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer is great as Catwoman. Danny DeVito is great as the Penguin, weird origin aside. Christopher Walken's great as Max Schreck. Alfred, once again, played by Michael Goff, is great. Him and Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon don't have a whole lot to do, but they're fine. And Michael Keaton, once again, is perfect as Batman. Great follow-up. It's very dark and very violent. They really upped that factor so much that where McDonald's had to recall their planned line of Happy Meal toys at the time. Yeah, I remember when that whole thing was going on. But yeah, Great movie, great sequel. All right, so next we have Batman Forever. So Tim Burton didn't return to direct. Now we have Joel Schumacher. I love The Lost Boys. I know that Joel Schumacher is a good director. It wasn't really his fault. But because the studio forced him to make all kinds of changes and stuff. This is the finished product. I don't really blame him. Michael Keaton is also MIA. He's now replaced by Val Kilmer. So, alright, yeah, Batman Forever, the third film in the live-action series that started with Tim Burton. This is where it really went downhill. Okay, let's kind of go pros and cons. Okay, the pros are that I think that Val Kilmer's not a bad Batman. He's a little better as Bruce Wayne than he is Batman, but like I feel like there's not enough duality. He kind of uses the same voice as Wayne that is Batman. He's not really very intimidating like Keaton was, and he's really not badass enough as Batman. He kind of just goes around talking normally, just like it would Bruce Wayne. Or he's talking about to Chase Meridian, played by Nicole Kidman, who's an original character, an original love interest. He's kind of just like, you know, he meets her at the bat signal, and like he just kind of just talks normally, and like I don't know, he just isn't that intimidating. Yeah, Chris O'Donnell, who plays Dick Grayson, Robin, was 25 years old when he filmed this, and it really shows. I'm glad they didn't have some little kid following Batman around. It works in the comics, it works in the cartoons. I think that having a young kid would have been a little too irritating, so I don't mind that they made him a teenager, even though that's kind of a stretch, seeing as, like I said, Chris O'Donnell's clearly in his 20s. He's okay. His origin is still there. His family died. He's an acrobat. He's part of the circus. His family's killed, not by Tony Zuko like in the comics, but this time by Harvey Dent, Two-Face. We'll get to him in a minute. And I do think that like they show all kinds of flashbacks of like Bruce Wayne, like remember his parents' murder, and like there's a lot of like subtle like depth and substance hidden in there. There's a really good movie hidden in here somewhere. Billy D. Williams doesn't reprise his role as Harvey Dent from Batman '89. Here he's like I said, he's Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, Michael Goff returns as Alfred. Pat Hingle returns as Commissioner Gordon. They have even less to do than they had the other ones. The Danny Elfman's score is gone. Now we have Elliot Goldenthal with a new score. It's not that bad. It's memorable, but it's not nearly as good as Elfman's. For what it is, the movie's pretty like mediocre, just kind of mid-level. It's kind of a mixed bag. But what really ruins it for me is the villains. Okay, it's clear that these villains were more inspired by the 60s TV show with Adam West than, well, pretty much anything else. And this was after the animated series was already going on, so they should have took more inspiration from that. Jim Carrey is the Riddler. I love Jim Carrey. In the 90s, he was everywhere. He was my favorite comedian with The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura. He was great. I don't think he really had any business playing the Riddler. Yeah, he's Edward Nygma. He's obsessed with Bruce Wayne, which I thought was an interesting idea. And like Bruce Wayne, Batman does use his detective skills to solve these mysteries, which is what I like. But like when he's overly comedic and overly campy and just kind of plays an evil Ace Ventura, it really doesn't work for me. I love you, Jim, but a true Riddler you are not. And also they changed Gotham. It's no longer dark and like surreal and nightmarish. Now it's like brightly colorful and like lit with all these neon flashing lights and stuff, and like all these CGI shots that are just awful. And there's a lot of like stupid like technology in here. Yeah, the Riddler's motivation, like wanting to best Bruce Wayne, is interesting, but like selling all these weird devices that go on top of your TV and like suck people's brainwaves out and make him smarter, that was just a little much. That was something that would have felt more at home in the 60s show. In a new series that started with this, that was very, very out of place. And then I love Tommy Lee Jones. I'm a huge fan. I think he's a fantastic actor. I haven't seen too many performances where he wasn't good. As Two-Face, he sucks the big one. One of the most interesting things about Harvey Dent is that he was an ally of Batman, and then they were friends, but then after his face got scarred during court by Sal Maroni, he wasn't the heroic DA anymore. He was the villainous Two-Face. Here, he shows no duality between Dent and Two-Face. There's no like inner struggle. It's just a campy comedic clown who dances around with the Riddler and makes jokes and just acts like a total buffoon. And like, yeah, he has the scarred coin, but he like would flip it over and over until it landed on the side that he wanted it to. Why? Why even flip the coin then? Yeah, they just butchered it. His origin was intact. Like, he did get scarred with the acid in the courtroom, just like in the comics, but it was very half-assed and very rushed. They just showed a clip of it on TV. I would have rather this been a Two-Face origin story than a Riddler one, but whatever. But like I said, Val Kilmer's fine as Batman, not as good as Keaton. Nicole Kidman's fine as Chase Meridian. Chris O'Donnell's fine as Dick Grayson, who becomes Robin. And, Bruce Wayne takes him in as his ward. He's his mentor. Dick Grayson's apprentice. That's all, pretty much mid-level, but the villains are really what sinks it down and makes it an awful movie. Along with all the crazy, ridiculous-looking, technology and flashing neon lights all over Gotham, and just the whole look. I will say that Joel Schumacher is good at making stunning visuals, but I think they just really didn't have any place in this movie. So yeah, this is where it really started to go downhill. 1995, Batman Forever. Meh. Mediocre. Like I said, it's where it started to go downhill, and this is where it hit rock bottom. Okay, Batman and Robin from 1997. What can we say that hasn't already been said a billion times? Okay. When I was a kid, Arnold Schwarzenegger was quite possibly my favorite action hero of all time, but here, he's just horribly miscast. Arnold Schwarzenegger is Mr. Freeze? Why? Okay, so like Batman Forever, the origin was... Two-Face's origin was done right in that, but everything else sucked. Here's the same deal. The origin's done right. He wants to save his wife, Nora Freeze. She has a disease, and he's trying to save her, and so Victor Freeze, the scientist, falls into, you guessed it, a vat of chemicals, just like the Joker, and makes him to where his body can only withstand freezing cold temperatures, and he wears the cryogenic suit, all that. The origin's there. The execution is very poor. Everything Arnold Schwarzenegger says as Mr. Freeze is an ice pun. Allow me to break the ice. Chill, Batman. Adam and evil. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. Ugh. Why didn't they take inspiration from the animated series? And that Mr. Freeze was a dark, tragic, really serious villain who you kind of sympathize with and rooted for. Here, I just think he's really annoying. Then, of course, there's Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, another over-the-top, silly, campy villain who'd be more at home in the 60s show, just like all the others in the Schumacher films. Not good. Yeah, Uma Thurman is a great actress, too, but a true Pamela Isley, Poison Ivy, she is not. And, again, on paper it worked. She used her seductive powers to make Batman and Robin fight over her, just like they did in the comic when she was first introduced. And she even uses it on Commissioner Gordon, who has even less to do in this movie, if you could believe it. It just doesn't work. I think the only part that's taken even remotely seriously is Alfred is now dying, and Bruce Wayne doesn't want that to happen because it's the closest thing he ever had to a father, and he's trying to figure out a way to save him from the disease that's killing him. That was done okay, and then there's even parts where Bruce Wayne reminisced about when he was a boy and Alfred was always there for him. That was done fine, but they ruined it by having Batgirl in this movie as Alfred's niece. She's not Commissioner Gordon's daughter, Barbara Gordon. She's Alfred's niece, Barbara Wilson, or some crap. And the way she becomes Batgirl, Alfred downloaded his consciousness into the Bat computer in the Bat Cave or the Wayne Mansion, I don't even know, or care, and then, she had to figure out this password. She gets by accident, and then Alfred, whose consciousness is in the computer, acts like he knew she was going to do that, and then she becomes Batgirl. Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl, with the origin I just said, does not work. And yeah, look at these horrendous costumes. The bat nipples, the close-ups of their butts when they're getting into costume. I know they wanted to sell action figures, and mission accomplished, I guess. So Chris O'Donnell's in this again as Robin. He's even more whiny and annoying than the last movie. All they do is fight. All he does is fight with Batman. Alicia Silverstone is Batgirl. It just all sucks. It probably would... it's a kid's movie. It's a kid's movie. Kids would enjoy this movie. I know it made a lot of the box office because kids probably begged their parents to bring them back to see it. As a kid's movie, it's fine. Probably any kid will like this movie. Just fine. I was already getting way too old and I just wasn't into it. I saw it in the theater. I was very disappointed. But, like I said, it has more in common with the 60s Batman show than Batman should actually be, and it's really frustrating when the Burton movie started out so good, and then this one was just a huge step backward. But I think the biggest middle finger, the biggest spit in the face, isn't Arnold Schwarzenegger with his ice puns. It's not Uma Thurman with her cringe-worthy dialogue. It's not Batgirl being Barbara Wilson instead of Barbara Gordon and being Alfred's niece instead of Commissioner Gordon's daughter. It's not George Clooney, who has no duality whatsoever as Batman and Bruce Wayne. George Clooney's another fantastic actor, but a true Bruce Wayne Batman, no. I don't blame him. I think it was written very poorly because, yeah, he was terrible, just like everything else in this awful movie. For adults, it's an awful movie for adults. For kids, it's probably really enjoyable and entertaining and fun, but for me, I expect a little more. My standards are higher when it comes to Batman. But like I was saying, the biggest spit in the face is Bane. Sometimes I even forget he's in this movie. Bane is almost like the perfect foe for Batman because he challenges him on an intellectual level. He's cunning and manipulative, and of course he's also extremely strong and physically imposing. He's just a muscular, hulking brute of a man with superhuman strength. He's the man who broke the bat, and in this, he's just the muscle. He's Poison Ivy's henchman. The origin's there. The venom that makes him so big and strong is there. The mask looks fine. He looks great. He's a little too green and like veiny for Bane, but the look, other than that, the look is fine. He's played by the late wrestler Jeep Swenson, but he has no dialogue outside of grunts and growls, and he's just the muscle. He works for Poison Ivy and helps her and Mr. Freeze throughout the movie, and does not challenge Batman really in any form at all. There's a fight scene at the end, but that's about it. He doesn't break the bat. He doesn't really do anything except what Poison Ivy tells him. Hell, he's not even there's not even a picture of him on this case. Like I said, sometimes I forget he's in this movie. Yeah, really? Bane? Bane? Yeah, the origin's there, the look is there, but he's just the muscle. Oh, God. Screw this movie. I hated it then, I still hate it now. But like I said, for a kid, if you have young kids and want to entertain them, show them this by all means. But it's a very poor representation of what Batman should be. And like I said, I don't blame Joel Schumacher for the awful costumes, just the flashy, neon, silly, overly technological camp crap. But yeah, overall, this is the worst live-action Batman movie by far. Alright, so after that movie bombed, there was still a fifth Batman movie planned, Batman Triumphant, all these other titles. There's even a Batman-Superman movie in talks. But yeah, George Clooney was going to return as Batman. Harley Quinn was going to be in it, this time as Joker's daughter, and the Scarecrow is going to be the main villain. There's even going to be a part where he used his fear toxin to make Batman hallucinate that the Joker was coming back. He was going to be played by Jack Nicholson. All that, and it was supposed to be darker and more serious, but I think that there's no way they could continue from this point and like be taken seriously ever again. Like they just had to pretend that movie didn't exist and maybe follow the first two Burton films. And Howard Stern was going to play the Scarecrow. Yeah, really sorry I didn't see that. So it was in development hell for years. And in 2005, we finally got a reboot. A lot of people thought it was going to be a prequel at the time, but it wasn't. Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. I saw this in theaters. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie, and I thought it was the best live-action Batman movie since Batman '89, directed by Tim Burton. But this just exploded all over the place onto the internet, and everybody was talking about it. And I was like, yeah, I liked it a lot. I thought it was pretty good. I have some issues, but I thought it was good. Then people started saying, finally they got it right. Tim Burton's Batman from 1989 is horrible, and I hate Michael Keaton. I hate Tim Burton. This is the real deal. Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale are really where it's at. Okay, not exactly. Like I said, we have to respect Tim Burton for finally making a true adaptation of Batman after he was just a silly, campy, comedic character for so long. Yes, this one, it did come full circle. This one did get the bad taste that this piece of crap left in our mouths, but this did get a little overrated at the time. So anyway, let's look at the story. Okay, so Christian Bale plays Batman. I'd still prefer Keaton because he was more mysterious, shadowy, and creepy. This one, Christian Bale's Batman is a lot less subtle and kind of talks a little too much, and then everything everybody says in these Nolan movies is like this big, lengthy, overly pretentious and important monologue, which is not how people talk in real life, even though this is supposed to be overly realistic. But Christian Bale does a great job. He plays the tortured, psychologically scarred Bruce Wayne, whose parents were killed as when he was a boy. It's not done as well as it was in the Burton film at all. It was very, very spoon-fed and, like, in your face. Thomas Wayne, like, still talking as he was dying. Don't be scared, Bruce. Like, people talk about fear way too much in the movie. It's not subtle. It's way too on the nose, and it's just, like, way too spelled out. So yeah, he plays that aspect. He plays Bruce Wayne in training, learning martial arts, and training his body to physical perfection to fight crime because he doesn't want anybody to ever go through what he did as a boy. He plays the billionaire playboy. And, of course, he plays Batman. Everything he does is great, and I really respect everything he put into the role. He had to really work out like crazy. I'm sure it's very emotionally and physically tolling. And he probably did put a lot more into it than Keaton, but I hate his voice. We've all talked about Christian Bale's awful, groan-inducing, cringeworthy, eye-rolling Batman voice, and it still sucks. It doesn't hold up well. I told myself, I was like, okay, this took a lot of inspiration from year one. Maybe this new rookie Batman. It's an origin story, and it takes a long time for him to become Batman, and like the sequence of events, the origins told out of order, flashbacks, and one time he's a young boy, then he's a teenager, then he's an adult, then he's back to a young boy. It's told out of order for some reason because it has to look all artsy. But I told myself, I was like, this is a young rookie Batman who hasn't figured out what voice to use yet. Maybe we're going to see another voice later in the next movie that's more like Michael Keaton or Kevin Conroy, the best Batman voice ever. That didn't happen. His voice isn't menacing, it's not intimidating, it's just laughable and embarrassing. If I was a criminal, I would be scared about the fact that he's kicking my ass and like holding me in midair with grappling hooks, but as soon as he says, "Where do the jokes going? Swear to me," I would just feel sorry for him. I'd just be like, ooh. I want to see a more subtle, more calm, more like quiet, silent, menacing Batman than like an angry, hot-headed, wild, emotional, psychotic sadist, you know? I will say that I like how violent and aggressive he is, which is cool, just like Michael Keaton's was. But overall, I do like Christian Bale. At the time, he was my second favorite live-action Batman. But again, compared to Kilmer and Clooney, that wasn't too hard, really. But I still prefer Keaton. But yeah, he's great. Liam Neeson, who plays evil Qui-Gon Jinn. I mean Ra's al Ghul. I mean Ra's al Ghul, which is what they call him in this movie, is the main villain. He's not a 1,000-year-old ancient warrior. There's no Lazarus Pit. The League of Shadows, or I'm sorry, the League of Assassins is there. They're part of. It's kind of clever how they incorporate that into Batman's origin. He was the one who trained him under the alias Henry Ducard. They kind of merged them into one character. His identity. So all that was done clever. I like all the martial arts stuff. A lot of the action's badly choreographed, but Liam Neeson's fine. He's a good Ra's al Ghul. He's not really what I would have pictured. Yeah, no Lazarus Pit, and none of that's here. It's a more realistic Batman. I like how dark and gritty it is. And serious and mature. It's a little too overly realistic. And like I said, everything everybody says is this long monologue. I do think that Gary Oldman, who could do no wrong, that the chameleon actor himself is great as Commissioner Gordon. Michael Caine's good as Alfred. He's kind of a more sarcastic smartass. Everything he says is a monologue as well. But it all works. The cast is great. Katie Holmes as Rachel Dawes is probably the weak point of the film, but I don't mind her as much as most fans do. But my favorite part of this movie, the scenes I look forward to the most, is, say it with me now, Cillian Murphy as the Scarecrow, Dr. Jonathan Crane. He was even creepier outside when he wasn't wearing the mask. Like, every time I saw him, he just gave me chills. That's kind of how Batman should have been. It should have been more subtle. Like, when they showed Bruce Wayne's hour-long origin in this, that's fine, but like once he became Batman, I think he should have been a little more mysterious and like coming out of the shadows and all that stuff. But for what it is, and it was a great origin story, like I said, it took inspiration from year one, that was fine, but yeah, Cillian Murphy is my favorite part of the Scarecrow, of the movie as the Scarecrow, and I wish he was in it a lot more. Yeah, as soon as it said, that was the only part that was retained from the Batman Triumphant script. The fifth Batman movie is always supposed to have Scarecrow, and so that was kind of a holdover when they made this movie. And yeah, Cillian Murphy does a phenomenal job. He's barely in it, but I feel like that kind of has more of an impact because, like, less is more, something that these movies didn't achieve very well. But yeah, it's introduced him as Dr. Jonathan Crane. When he first puts the Scarecrow mask on, the burlap sack, and then, hits Falcone with the fear toxins, like, they scream and they cry. That was really awesome. That blew me away. I wish he was in the movie more. I wish he was the main villain instead of just one of Ra's al Ghul's pawns. They use his fear toxin, though, to make Gotham just hallucinate and just be in this grip of fear, which is cool. But overall, yeah, still a great movie. I liked it. I loved it a lot when I saw it in theaters, but I did get kind of tired of people bashing Batman 89 in favor of this one. Because for me, I liked both. But anyway, maybe I should review that someday, because I have way more to talk about. I've already spent enough time on it. Then, of course, in 2008, we have The Dark Knight. Christian Bale returns, still using that awful throat cancer voice. Gary Oldman returns as Commissioner Gordon. And Aaron Eckhart plays Harvey Dent. And what I always wanted to see was Batman teaming up with Commissioner Gordon and Harvey Dent to bring down a villain. And this one, it's the Joker. How awesome is that? So it's where Batman Begins took inspiration from Year One. This takes a lot of inspiration from The Long Halloween and The Killing Joke. They don't have the vat of chemicals origin for the Joker. He doesn't use his lethal laughing gas or hand buzzers or where he just start playing cards or anything like that, which kind of sucks. But he's a more realistic, more serious, grittier Joker, and like he instead carves smiles on people's face with his knife, which is pretty disturbing in its own right. And yeah, he's responsible for scarring Harvey Dent's face and making him become Two-Face. I was kind of hoping he would use a flower that spits acid in a courtroom scene, like just having him be the one responsible for Dent scarring instead of Sal Maroni. But he is the one responsible for Dent becoming Two-Face, just done it a different way. This movie's awesome. This is my second favorite next to Batman 89, but it's very close. Sometimes I prefer this one. This is way more like the graphic novels that I grew up reading, and this really gave me a lot of things I wanted as Batman. When I first heard Heath Ledger, the guy from 10 Things I Hate About You, and A Knight's Tale was going to be the Joker, I was like, really? And then I saw a picture, I was like, okay, so he's not perma-white, his skin isn't bleached, his hair, he doesn't have actual green hair, he's just wearing face paint and then long, grungy, spray-painted green hair, and it's a realistic take, he's going to be a terrorist or an anarchist. I was like, meh. But then I saw the movie and I was totally wrong. Heath Ledger was great, he stole every scene he's in, and he really separated himself from the role. I still love Nicholson. He was overall had a closer, more faithful setup to the Joker in the comics, but I think performance-wise, Ledger nailed it, because I kind of, like, when Nicholson kind of played himself, Ledger really put a lot to the role. I don't see Heath Ledger, I see the Joker. It's a more realistic, gritty Joker, sure, without a lot of the things I liked about him from the comics, but it's still really awesome, and Aaron Eckhart was great as Two-Face. He had a great origin story in this. And Christian Bale's great as Batman too, still kicking all kinds of ass and, taking down thugs in a really violent, aggressive way, which is great. This movie is wonderful. I absolutely love it. Highly recommended. I gave it a separate review because I'm already reaching the 40-minute mark. I don't like my videos to be too long, which is why I trimmed down that part 4 video, and which was blew up on my face, I might add. But yeah, great movie. Highly recommended. Then we have The Dark Knight Rises. This one took inspiration from The Dark Knight Returns. It's years later. It's a realistic Bane that doesn't have the venom making him super strong. He doesn't have the Lucha Libre mask. Tom Hardy does a great job. It's funny that I always thought that Venom and Bane, the Spider-Man villain Venom and Bane from the Batman comics were kind of similar. It's funny that Tom Hardy plays both, but they're different interpretations that really lack a lot of things I liked about the comic. It's still a great performance, but yeah, that doesn't look like Bane. It doesn't feel like Bane. It's a cool villain, and it works in this overly realistic universe, but it's fine. Talia al Ghul has a pretty big part in this movie. Is the one pulling the strings, and Bane just kind of ends up being another pawn yet again, which is one of my biggest problems with Batman and Robin, is that he was a henchman, and then they kind of did this again with Talia al Ghul, but it's a lot better. At least he did challenge Bruce Wayne on an intellectual and physical level, and he did technically break the bat, which was cool. Anne Hathaway was great as Selena Kyle, but her costume wasn't cat-like enough for me. They had to make it realistic to where she has these goggles or something, and they go up and kind of look like cat ears. She wears a skin-tight leather leotard, but it just didn't feel like feline-esque enough for me, and so overall it didn't work. But performance-wise, she was fine. She teamed up with Batman. She was more of an ally. They've always had kind of a romantic love-hate relationship, and this one she's barely a villain, except for maybe at the beginning. But yeah, it's a good movie, but it's my least favorite of the Dark Knight trilogy. I think the Dark Knight is way better, and I think that Batman Begins is also better. This is my least favorite. There's a lot of things I don't like about it, but for what it is, it's a different Bane, it's a different Catwoman. It's just a different interpretation. We have a character played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who at the end we find out his nickname or his real name or something is Robin. I don't know. I'm glad this was the last one, because I think they kind of would have screwed it up if they kept going, but I still recommend it. It's good, but I'd rather watch Batman 89 or Batman Returns, or especially The Dark Knight, than sit through that again. I've seen this one maybe twice. I've saw all these in the theater, by the way, except for Batman 89, and of course, Batman the movie from 1966. Alright, so that was it for the Dark Knight trilogy, the Christopher Nolan movies. Overall, very, very good. Very good representations of Batman from the comics. There's a lot of things that I wanted to see in a live-action movie that they delivered. Heath Ledger was great as the Joker. Aaron Eckhart was great as Two-Face. Cillian Murphy was great as Scarecrow, even though he didn't have a final battle with Batman when he became the full Scarecrow at the end. It's just Rachel Dawes. I thought that Maggie Gyllenhaal was a little better as Rachel than Katie Holmes was, and I do like how Joker killed her off and was responsible for Harvey Dent becoming Two-Face. That was kind of like a cool nod, I think, to the fact they killed Jason Todd, the second Robin in the comics. But overall, I definitely recommend the Dark Knight trilogy. By the way, I'm not just showing my collection. I'm not just saying, here's this one, here's this one. I want to talk about these movies too, but I should probably give them their own individual review. So that was it. Then we started a new DC Extended Universe, which I was thrilled for at first. I wasn't a big fan of Man of Steel, but I'll save my full thoughts on that for my Superman collection video. The follow-up, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, was pretty much when they decided that they had to create this big DC cinematic universe to compete with the MCU and like ride on its success. They really rushed it. I won't go into why I wasn't a big fan of Man of Steel, but basically it's the same as true for this. I don't think dark and gritty and overly realistic and overly serious works for Superman. It works well for Batman, but not Superman. And so in this movie, I've been wanting to see a Batman-Superman movie for years. It's one of the most anticipated on-screen crossovers ever. And but there was really no contrast between them. It was just, I just saw two dark, brooding, sullen, morose, tragic figures with a tortured past and like psychologically shattered motivations, and they were both badass, and like that was it. Even the Superman in these movies even wears darker colors. Like, why? I want to see the more lighthearted, big blue Boy Scout who saves cats out of trees and winks and says, "Only doing my job, ma'am," and then flies off into the sunlight. In the sunset or whatever. Christopher Reeve's still the best live-action Superman, but Henry Cavill did win me over. I just don't think that Zack Snyder really understood what Superman should be about. But overall, yeah, Henry Cavill is fine as Superman. I don't really like this movie. I think it's too much of a mixed bag. It's like a mess. But everything from the Batman side of things was done very well. Ben Affleck was a great Bruce Wayne, great Batman. He even looked like Bruce Wayne for the comics. He had the square jaw. He was very intimidating, very menacing. He would come out of the shadows and beat the crap out of thugs. Like, if this Batman exists in the real world, I would be terrified to break the law. He has all criminals that, like, fearing his name, like in Gotham, and like dreading the bat signal. That was all done very well. Ben Affleck nailed it. When I first found out Affleck was going to play Batman, I was very worried. But I saw it, and he was awesome. Everything to do with Batman was awesome in this movie. Ben Affleck was great as Bruce Wayne, Batman. Jeremy Irons was great as Alfred. It was just awesome. Yeah, like I said, Superman didn't feel like Superman for me. I don't like the fact that they felt like they needed a preview for a Justice League movie. This one really rushed into a shared universe just to keep up with the MCU, and it really shows. I didn't really need to see the death of Superman. I didn't need to see Doomsday yet. I didn't need to see, like I said, a preview for Justice League. All I really wanted to see was Batman fighting Superman. And that part, I think, was done very well. Their fight was awesome. The reason they were fighting was stupid. Their motivations were stupid. The reason they stopped fighting was stupid. Almost everything in this movie sucked, except for everything to do with Ben Affleck as Batman, who had a better voice. It was like robotic and too monotone because he used this microphone or something. I didn't care for that, but it's better than "swear to me." So, hell, I'll take it. Not as good as Keaton or Conroy, but better than Bale. The voice. Yeah, the fight scene is pretty cool. Of course, Batman used his cybernetic suit just like it. Took a lot of inspiration from Dark Knight Returns, the fight with Superman. And he even used kryptonite, just like Oliver Queen did in Dark Knight Returns. Formerly the Green Arrow, he used a kryptonite arrow to help Bruce Wayne fight Superman. That's all fine. And it was cool to see Wonder Woman joining them to fight Doomsday at the end. I really like her theme. That's a really memorable, iconic theme, just like the John Williams Superman score from the Christopher Reeve movies, and just like the Danny Elfman Batman score from the Michael Keaton movies. Really cool to see Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot does a great job. But I think the biggest problem with the movie, besides the fact that it's a jumbled together mess with way too much going on, it's way too overly complicated, overcrowded. But I think my biggest problem is Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I don't think Jesse Eisenberg's Lex, like his performance is a bad idea for a villain. I agree with all the people saying that he would have been a better Riddler. Lex Luthor should be a cunning, manipulative, cold, calculating genius with, he's a mastermind. He's kind of like an evil Bruce Wayne. Extremely intelligent, genius-level intellect billionaire, but he uses his powers for evil. He has gadgetry and weapons, but he uses it all for evil, whereas Bruce Wayne uses it for good, to fight crime. I wanted to see a live-action Lex Luthor do that, but instead we get a quirky, manic, young, egotistical, mad scientist type who's just really annoying and has weird motivations and even weirder actions. I do like the part where he does kind of make Superman bow before him because he kidnapped his mom, but everything leading up to this scene, all the dialogue and everything he does is stupid. Why is he obsessed with Jolly Ranchers? Why is he so, goofy and over the top? Zack Snyder's good at making gritty, realistic, overly serious characters. He does a great job with Batman. His vision would be fairly well for a solo Batman movie, which I wish we were getting one with Ben Affleck, but we're not now. It doesn't work for Superman, but he got Lex Luthor and Superman backwards. Superman should be more lighthearted and colorful and comedic, and Lex should be more serious. Whatever. Overall, this movie's just a huge mixed bag, but like I said, I do like the fight between Batman and Superman. I do think Henry Cavill does a good job for what it is. It wasn't like the true Superman that I want to see. Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor sucks. Gal Gadot was a great Wonder Woman. There's a lot of good stuff in this movie, but it wasn't enough to save it. Overall, it's a mess. I do think that this Ultimate Edition is way better than theatrical. It does fix a lot of problems, but there's still a lot of issues that I have with it that are very evident. But overall, let me talk more about this when I get to my Superman collection video. Because next we had Suicide Squad. Was the next installment in this new DC Extended Universe. Ben Affleck's Batman is in this briefly for one or two scenes. We have Margot Robbie, who's great as a live-action Harley Quinn. Jared Leto was not a good Joker. He wasn't written well. Jared Leto has potential to be a great Joker, but giving him a metal grill and tattoos and having being like a mob boss who looks like a reject from Fallout Boy who used to work as a Hot Topic clerk. He looked more like a Joker henchman than the actual Joker. He wasn't like a mastermind. He wasn't like a maniacal criminal genius. He was just a mob boss who did weird things that had weird mannerisms and weird nervous tics. He wasn't perma white enough. It just looked like face paint yet again. It looked like a Halloween costume. It looked like a cosplay. But like I said, it's not Jared Leto's fault. He could have played a great Joker, but it was written very, very bad. But Margot Robbie was good. What little we saw of Ben Affleck as Batman was awesome. I'd love to see more of him as Batman. But overall, I didn't really care for this movie. I think it's probably my least favorite of the DC Extended Universe. Some things I really liked, but overall, a lot of things I really did not. Joker included. Okay, and so then there was Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. I love this cast. I love all these characters. I think they did great. Henry Cavill finally felt like the Superman I wanted to see. Smiling. He's talking a lot. He's winking. He even races with the Flash. He's saving people. He's heroic and brave. Everything I wanted to see in Superman. He's colorful and lighthearted. Is great. Ben Affleck's Batman wasn't done as well. Joss Whedon finished directing this movie after Zack Snyder left the project. And Ben Affleck's Batman is a little too jokey. But I like Jason Momoa's Aquaman. I like Cyborg. I like Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. I like Ezra Miller's Flash. I'm going to talk about this more when I get to my Superman collection video and my Justice League collection video. I liked this a lot, actually, when I first saw it in theaters, because I just liked all the characters. Yeah, it had a bland, lame, generic villain, but so did a lot of MCU films at the time. Outside of Loki and the Vulture, pretty much all the MCU villains were very forgettable. But I just love this cast. I love all these people. This finally felt like Superman since the Christopher Reeve films. And And yeah, like I said, yeah, great cast. Oh, but Superman had a CGI upper lip. They CGI'd his mustache, so it must be a terrible movie. Wah! Joking. But no, I really did like this movie. But I think that Zack Snyder's director's cut does everything much better, except for two things. Steppenwolf was a better villain in this, but his armor looked gross and just a little too exaggerated, the CGI. And Superman was back to the dark, brooding, like, morose, sullen, tragic, badass figure who barely spoke a word. I didn't like that. And he wore the black suit from the comics, which was awesome. Yay, Superman barely wore the black suit. But when they just made him another Batman, wearing the black suit just, like, enhanced that. He's just another Batman. Even Aquaman was way too dark and serious in this one. I like that they made Aquaman more badass, and I like Jason Momoa's version of the character. The Aquaman movie was awesome, very adventurous, and very epic. But I feel like in this version we had three Batmans. Batman was done way better in this one than it was in this version. He wasn't, like, too comedic, and he didn't make jokes. He's way more badass and dark and serious. I mean, I really want to see a solo Batman movie with Ben Affleck, but now we're not seeing one, unfortunately. But, yeah, we had three Batmans. There we go. 1, 2, and 3. Henry Cavill was way better as Superman in this. He really won me over. But aside from Superman and aside from Steppenwolf's gross armor, this was phenomenal. This was way better than the theatrical version. I think Zack Snyder did a great job. It's like almost 4 hours long, and a lot of the problems I had with this one were absent here. It tells a more coherent story.